All yours, Kuketso. Thank you so much.
All right, guys, just let me know if you guys can see my screen.
Yes, I can see the screen. I can see the presentation.
Okay, awesome stuff. All right, so good afternoon, guys. Welcome yet again to part 4. Yeah, we've got so much coding to do, so much stuff to learn today. So yeah, so today I'm not going to really focus too much on the presentation side of things because I just want us to actually finish the project. So just a recap of obviously what we have done for the last 4 days is that you guys will definitely get the recordings after today to actually find out what exactly we did. We've learned quite a lot in terms of the theory, but today I really want to focus on just finishing off the project and so forth. So we're just going to finish off with the CSS, we're going to finish off with the HTML, we're going to push our code to get and finally host it to Microsoft Azure. So looking at the time, I mean, if we had one more day, we were actually gonna, code everything out. So what I just did was I actually created a template for you guys that I hosted on my GitHub. I'll post the link for you guys to get, and then we can just obviously extract that, and then we will just work from there. But just all right. So just without further ado, let's jump straight into the code. Right. So remember yesterday, guys, picking up from where I showed you, just close some of these. All right. All right. So yesterday, remember, guys, we spoke about actually hosting our website live, right? So as we saw yesterday, we ran our first Django app. I even showed you guys actually how to, use URL paths and so forth. So now another thing what I want to do is, okay, so we can actually just carry on from there, and just to make sure everything's all right. Okay, cool. So first things first, guys. I think just to be 100% sure, guys gets the start of us so that you can quickly extract. All right. So let's see. All right, so this link that I'm going to give you guys, the only thing you just have to do is just download the files, right? So it's going to be a link. How you download the files, it's gonna actually take you to a page that looks like this, right? And then what you then do is, so this is the URL path that I'll share in the chat. And then what you just do is you right click on code, right? And you download the zip, right? So it's going to be a zip file. And let me just paste that for you. That. All right. So that is the link that you guys can actually go and grab the website that we're gonna actually be using for today, right? So I already have it locally on my system. Um, yeah, I already have it. So guys, just make sure you quickly just download it, unzip it as well. All right. So now I already have everything set up for. No, it's actually not this one. I think I actually have to download it as well. All right, so let's download file. We can actually do is in that folder that we actually created, we were actually initially working from. What you guys can actually do is I'm going to actually show you how you can actually transfer your HTML and CSS files into your Django project, right? So in this folder over here, guys, so either you're using VS Code or you want to just go onto your folder. You want to create a new folder, right? And this folder then is going to be called static, right? Static. Reason being is this is where you're going to actually place all of your static folders and files, right? So we know that our CSS is a static file. We know that JavaScript is a static file, as well as our images, right? So this is where all of our static files are actually going to be placed. So if I look at we actually downloaded this folder, expand that, and then I can just extract these files. Now I'm going to show you a really cool trick that Django and HTML actually, that's why I always say that you can actually use Django as a full stack product, right? So we have okay, we need to extract this again. Right, so my juice. So guys, as I said, this website basically, so let's just take a quick look on how this website looks like. So you guys can obviously play around in terms of editing and shifting things. So this is just a simple landing website. It's a website that was created in Django. You can put your name over there and so forth. As you guys can see, it's a simple, nice looking landing page. You guys can definitely obviously change how you guys want your website to actually look like, right? So what I'm then going to do is, so in this folder that I actually extracted, you'll see then, okay, so we have our CSS, right? So it's got a whole bunch of Bootstrap stuff. So this is just CSS libraries. You don't have to really worry about. Don't have to worry about fonts, icons, images. So as you can see, these are some of the images that are used on the site. So we're not going to use JavaScript and so forth. So what I'm then going to do is I'm going to take this index. Remember, I used to tell you guys that most web developers, they actually name their homepage index, right? So I'm just going to copy this index, right? I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to go to the website that we created in Django, right? Go to my site, and we are going to go to, oh, before I actually forget, we actually have to create another folder inside of my sites, because remember, we actually have to now create our templates, right? So remember, I spoke about templates. So what we then have to do is inside of my main folder, right? So just to be double sure, right? So we have three folders now. We have my site, my website, and we have static, right? So static files, this is where all our HTML goes in. In my website, obviously, this is where the application is going to be. But now we have to then create in my site, we then have to create another folder, and we have to call this templates, right? So templates, right? And inside of templates, now this is actually how Django just wants it to be. I'm not quite sure why, but you then have to create another folder, and you have to actually create call it my site as well, right? So this, I know it might be a bit confusing, but it's just the way Django actually does it. And inside of this Django project, remember then what we want to then do is track back to where we actually stored our. So we're then going to create an HTML file, right? So if you go to VS Code, just wait a second. Let's just refresh. All right, so we have our templates folder over here and so forth. Then what we can then simply do is you create a new file, right? And in this file, what we're going to then call it, we just also going to call it, let's just call it base.html for now, all right? So as you guys can see, all right, so let's just start templating our HTML. So remember one of those shortcut keys that I actually told you guys. So we actually don't have to do that. Let's just create a quick doc type HTML. Right, and what we then gonna do is just gonna say HTML. Fine. So every time you open a tag, we have to close its tag HTML. Right, so this is just going to be a basic template, and obviously, as I also tell you guys, let me just add. So good programming for neat code, you always just want to indent your code, right, just so that it actually looks neat. So obviously, we're going to have the head every time you open a class. a tag, you wanna close a tag. All right, so we have the header. And what else do we have? We have the body, right? Body tag. So as you guys can see now, I don't have to type everything out because VS Code, remember we actually installed that extension called auto tag or auto complete. This VS Code actually helps us to actually create all of these tags so quickly. So as you guys can see, it makes my coding life much easier. So let's just quickly test and see if just to print something out. So we will just say one tag. And what we'll then actually say is, hello, this is my HTML page in Django, right? If I save that. So now think about what I spoke about to you guys yesterday in terms of rendering the pages, right? So if I go to my URLs, I already have an index page over here, but remember, I named this base, right? So what I then have to do is if I go to my views, and you have to actually think that, okay, so I have two functions, which is that page that I spoke about, and we have that index. But my one is actually called base, but I don't want to change anything over here already, because what I want to then do is I want to then go to my URLs, right? And the first things I just want to just double check is that in my URLs path over here is that, okay, so I've already got my site, which is actually linked to my to the side over here. And what I want to then double check is I want to just also go to my URLs. So let's quickly go to our views. And what we then want to then double check in our views is that, as you guys can see, we are using an HTTP response, and that's really not actually a good way to actually code out your solution. So I'm just going to take this line of code out. And what I'm then going to replace this, instead of returning an HTTP response, what I'm then going to then do is I'm just going to then make sure that, I just want to make sure that you guys have this render input. So what this render means, render just really means show, right? So render, right? And what exactly am I rendering? Okay, so now the only thing I want to do is I want to render a response, right? This is my response. And what exactly is my response? So actually I need to change this from a request to a response, right? So what exactly am I then going to, am I getting? I then need to tell Django that, hey, I already created a template, right? Where exactly is my template? So my template is called slide/base.html. All right, and if I save that, and all right, so I can actually test and let me run it in my terminal. All right, so while that's still loading, what we then can do is I want us to actually do some settings, all right, some configurations. Now, the first things first is that I want you guys to actually go right at the top, and I want you guys to actually, as you guys can see, like over here is this like some document, okay, some tips and hints that obviously Django can tell you, but this is all available on the documentation, so that's not really a problem. So then the first thing that I want to do is I want to actually just modify a couple of things onto my website, right? So what's the first thing that I want to do? So right under here, I want to import OS, right? So reason being I want to import OS is because somehow I need to also, I'm going to have to access this OS property because I am going to have to have access to that static, to the static folder. Remember what I said to you guys about static folders, right? Is that this is where all of our static properties are going to be. So our images, our and our CSS, right? And now the next thing I want you guys to do is I want you guys to look at allowed hosts. Now I want you guys to put a star in there. Now, when you see if you're going to when you host your website onto Azure, ideally this is where you actually want to put your URL. But because obviously this is the first time you guys do this, it's best that you guys just keep it as simple as that, right? So we can scroll all the way down. Another thing is I need to actually tell Django that, hey, I've got some static files and I need for you to actually please access my static files, right? So then how do we then tell Django that, hey, we've got some static files? Now that what we can do is we then can just say all in capital letters, static files underscore dirs, which means this stands for directory, right? And this is going to be a list. And remember, we imported that OS module, so it's just going to say os.path, right? And this path then needs to join. What am I joining? Well, I need you to actually join my base underscore dar, and I want you to include my static folder, right, as you guys can see. Right, perfect. Then I just need to obviously have a come over here and I save that. So that's pretty much all of the settings that we need to do. All right, so now let's go back into our folder. And what we then can do is let's take our images, let's take our CSS folders, let's copy that, and let's place it actually all inside our static folder, right? And we can simply paste all of that over there. Right, awesome. So we've got our CSS, our images inside of our static files, and everything's looking fine. All right, cool. So now the one thing is I want to do is let's just quickly test, hopefully, and see if this is going to work. So Python manage.py run server. Okay, let's see. Is it giving me an error? Let's just see. My site.views has no page. Oh, I removed that page attribute. So in my site.views, let's see, my site.views, let's go to URLs. Okay, so it's should be fine, but let's just take that out. Let's save. Okay, let's see. Loading, checking. Okay, that's fine. And okay, guys, so if you see this red line, this is just basically meaning that you haven't done any migrations. But because we're not working with databases and everything, for now, it's not really that important, right? So let's just see and run. All right, so this is my HTML page in Django. Oh, everything is working perfectly fine. So as you guys can see, let's go to our, where is our bit migrations? Where is my templates base? All right, so yeah, so everything is actually looking perfectly well on our side, right? So close that. So Django is actually picking up that this is my HTML page in Django, and this is my HTML page in Django. Perfect, guys. So we are on the right track. So now, remember, guys, in that folder that I actually showed you guys, what I'm then going to do is I'm just going to change the name base, right? So as you guys can see, I'm just going to copy this, then I'm going to paste it into my template folder, right? Template, and I'm going to paste it right over. Oh no, wrong folder. Into my templates, and I'm going to paste it all in here. Wait, am I doing it in here? All right, and I'm going to paste that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete this base, right? I'm going to delete that base, and I'm going to rename this index to base now, right? I'm just gonna do that. So now what did I just do? Now it means that I'm converting that old HTML page into my Django application. And if I press refresh, now you will see that, oh, okay, so there's actually some information, but this is not really the kind of website we're actually trying to build. But as you guys can see, the information is all there. Everything is working perfectly. My Django app is still running, and it's actually rendering my page over there. All right. So these are all the information and so forth. Like, as I said, guys, because of time, we really couldn't build out the whole website, but I definitely know that I did show you guys an example. I think it was the day before yesterday, in terms of how to actually work with HTML, with classes and so forth. All right, so now what we have to then do is, all right, we do like now all of this stuff, but this is not really looking like this, right? I mean, I can see that, okay, here's the title of my website. I don't see any images. I don't see anything beautiful. I don't see anything, grand and everything. It's looking really boring, right? So now what we have to do is we're going to go back to our HTML file, right, in our base.html. Now, this is what I'm going to now teach you guys, is something called Jinja, right? So Jinja, basically, think about Jinja as an interpreter between Django and HTML specifically, right? So Jinja actually has certain syntax that will actually help us to actually communicate with our application, right? So right at the top of the page, what I then have to do is, remember, I created this static folder, right? And this static folder, actually, remember, it actually holds my my style.css. Remember, style.css is all of the styling mechanisms that we actually have, right? So now I actually need to tell Django that you need to actually go find a way to go access all of my static files, which is my CSS and my images. But then how do I actually do that? So right at the top of the code, what you want to then do is have two curly braces and two percent signs. And right in the middle, we then have to say load static. Right? Okay, there we go. Now, if I save that, and what this actually line does, simply what it does is that I then need to just tell Django, HTML is actually telling Django that, hey, now I have a file called static and please load it for me. All right. And if I save and I still go back to my website and I press refresh, you'll see nothing still happens. But why is that? Because we need to explicitly tell Django that on our HTML file that, hey, you actually need to go actually look at a specific place. So for example, what I want to show you guys quickly is that I have an image over here somewhere. Let me just try to zoom out a bit. All right, so hopefully you guys can still see my code. All right, so I want to just quickly show you an example. If I scroll down, so right, as you guys can see, I have an image over here, right? Now, remember, our images are stored into my static file. So now the first things first, what I need to do is I then need to explicitly tell Django in my HTML file that, hey, please go look in this directory. And how do we do that is we open up the curly braces with the percent sign while, and we also put in static, right? And then what we then do is put this in single quotations. And at the end, single quotations, close $, and close curly braces. And if I save, now as soon as I save this, right, we all go to my browser and I press F5, you'll now see that, there comes my image, right? So what does this actually tell us? This actually tells us that whenever you have an CSS or an image path, you need to explicitly tell it that you need to go into my static folder, because you remember at the top we said load static. So it actually specifically needs to go and look through my static files to access my images that I'm trying to portray. Right, so that's exactly what we need to do. So I'm gonna come down over here, since I've got another image, curly braces, $, static, and put this all in single quotations. Single quotations. Single quotations. And we save. Go to my browser, hit refresh. And as you guys can see, there's my second image over there. Now, as you guys can see, I only have the images, right, that are now showing onto my website. But then what about my CSS? So this is exactly what we need to do. So right at the top, remember that's how we actually link. Now, because this website has a lot of bootstrap that's actually involved, every time you see an href, right? So as you can see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. We actually need to do the same thing. So I'm just quickly gonna go down here and I'm just gonna copy this static, right? And I'm just gonna paste it whenever I see them, right? And I'm just gonna make these minor changes. And I'm just gonna say close sign, close brackets, do that, brackets, and sign, brackets, and okay. And close brackets, and 2 more, right? Right. So that looks like it's most of them, all right? So change all of our static files, and if I save, if I go back to my browser, fingers crossed if I press F5, let's see. Okay, so it's actually looking, let me just zoom out. Perfect. Right. So guys, as you guys can see, now my Django application is working 100%. It's looking exactly like the one that we actually got from my site, and it's looking a-okay. It's looking perfect, guys. So if you've gotten this far, well done, well done, well done. Guys, as I always encourage you guys, please make sure that you keep practicing. I mean, you guys can obviously change the whole theme of the website, get different pictures, play around with it, and so forth. So now that we have our Django app all up and running, right? Perfect. Everything is looking good. We have no bugs. We have no crashes, right? So now what we then have to first do is, now what I want to do is I want to push my code to GitHub, right? Because why? We want to save our file repositories. So now the first thing I want to then do is I'm just going to go to GitHub, right? So you guys obviously have to sign in as well. So this is quite important because now I'm actually going to show you guys some git commands, right? So what are git commands? So git commands actually help us to just push our code onto our website, but in a more efficient and proper way as a developer, right? So just go to your account. If you're not quite sure how to create a repository, I'll actually just show you, because as I'm gonna create one myself, right? So you just go onto when you log onto GitHub, it should actually, so you guys won't have any of this, right? Because I've got some projects, but what you can just simply do is go down there and you will just go to my repositories, right? Then it's going to actually give you into a page that looks exactly like this. And what you want to then do is, all right, so as I said, you guys won't have anything over here. You'll go to new, right? So in this new repository, what I'm gonna call this my first Django website. You guys can call it whatever you guys wanna call it, website, right? And just scroll down. Just make sure you add a README file, and this is going to be quite important, and I will tell you why. Right, so you create my repository. Remember, guys, a repository is just a bucket that actually helps us to store our code, right? So remember when I showed you that link in the chat that there's something that looks something like this, right? So you have the code, you have the URL, you can download it wherever you are and so forth. But this is not really efficient as a developer because you actually need to start learning how to use all of these tools that we have. So that's why we have, so remember, guys, we have something called Git, right? Remember, we once downloaded Git. Let me just open it up. Git, right? So Git, when you install it, it should actually, you can actually see it. It's installed into my system. So we're gonna be using Git Bash, right? But how do we then use Git Bash, right? So I want you guys to go to your folder, right? So we can actually close this um, one that we extracted, and let's just focus on our Django application for now, right? So, okay, so now I've got my website, right? Inside my Django folder. Now, the first things first, what I want to do is I want to actually push all of this code inside. Okay, so guys, actually another thing is I want you guys to create a new TXT folder, right? So a text document. Now, inside of this text document, and this is quite important, right? Inside of this text document, all you just have to do is type in Django equals 3.0.3. Now, just to be extremely careful, what you want to do is you want to actually, let's just say CMD, so that you can actually check the version, the Django version that you actually have. So how do you then check the version Django that you have? Just go onto your the start button and just type in CMD as we always used to do. And what we just have to then check our version Django dash V. Okay, wait. So I think I just need to actually do it this way. CMD. And let's just check. And I'm just trying to check. Is it? I think it's. I'm just trying to check my Django dash admin. Oops. So I'm just gonna double check. Note that let's see which command. Okay, this is perfectly fine. But what you guys want to then do is create a TXT folder called requirements, right? And just change that to 10.3.10.0, which is perfectly fine, right? Which is like the latest version of Django, whatever. I think the latest one is 4, but actually I think if I run my terminal, is my terminal up? Let me just check with my terminal. Sometimes it may actually show up in my terminal. Let's see. No, so guys, the reason why I'm actually fussing about, okay, so there we go. So it's Python, Django 4.0. Okay, so I can just say 4.0. That's fine. So now the reason why this is quite important is because, especially with software, there's going to be so many updates, right? You just want to make sure that it's actually quite relevant. So using Django 4.0, perfect. So we can close that. And now, guys, remember I was talking to you about Git. So basically, your website has to look something along like this. You have your app, you have your project, you have your static files, you have your requirements. Okay, we can delete the database since we're not using that. Okay, it's fine. We have our manage.py file. All right, so now I want to actually push this folder to Git. But then how do I actually do that, right? So now I want you guys to you're going to hold shift and you're going to right click onto your mouse, right? And what it then does, it's going to actually open a git GUI here or git bash here. So I want to git bash over here. So now guys, I'm going to teach you guys just a few of some git commands that you guys are definitely going to need, right? So before I actually push my code, just want to make sure that everything is 100%, especially my settings. Make sure that when I'm going to host my file, hosting, okay, that's fine, that's perfect. Okay, cool. So if I open my git bash, and let me just try zoom in a bit. Right, so I'm then going to teach you about something about a quick summary about how does Git and GitHub work. So Git, basically, you can use onto your PC that you can actually push onto push it into your code onto your GitHub account. So now the reason why this is quite efficient is because, especially if you're going to be working with other developers, and it just makes your life as a developer much easier, right? So now the first thing I want to do is I want to say git init, which actually tells Git to, I want to actually initialize, right? So what is it saying? So it's initializing an empty Git repository. Now we then have to make sure, if I go into my GitHub account once again, I need to actually, if I click next to this code, you'll see there is a URL over here, right? So you just want to quickly copy that, make sure that it's copied, right? And the first thing you want to then do is you want to then say git add space dot. So this git add dot actually means I want you to take all of the files that I'm actually working with. So let's just have a quick scan and see all of the files that we're actually going to be including. Right, as you guys can see, statics.css, obviously we recognize that. Static CSS, we recognize that. If I go down a bit, still static. So it's taking all of my .css files and all of my repositories, which is pretty cool, right? So this is exactly what we want to do. So now what do we then want to do? So now I want to actually so how do I now tell Git that I want to actually link with my GitHub repository, right? So remember we actually cloned, or we copied that URL. So now the next thing what we need to do is, if I say git status, right? This is then I'm going to check every single one of my files, right? So if I zoom out a bit, you guys can now see each and every single file that we've actually used, right? Let me show you guys. So there is my site, my creations, you can say my templates, my site. You see, so it's actually, this status shows us that this is everything that's now going to be pushed onto my GitHub repository, right? So now, as I said, now I want to actually specifically push my my files to my repository. All right, so we're then going to say git commit. So a commit means it's actually going to push, and I'm going to say -m, which stands for a message, and you can obviously give it a specific name. So I'm just going to say first commit. Now this naming convention is quite important, especially if you're going into development, because this is how you're going to keep track of all the changes that you've been doing in terms. So you can have your first commit, your second commit, or version 1, version 2, whatever it is, but obviously you will actually know what it actually means when you actually push all of these commits, right? So we're going to press enter. So now, as you can see, okay, even all of my images are now being pushed. It's being pushed. But now where exactly do I now, okay, I've pushed everything to GitHub. Where do I now save this? All right, so now we have to say git remote, because we're actually using Git and communicating it with GitHub. I want to now add an origin, right? So this is the origin, and then we have to paste that URL that we got over here. So we can just simply right click and we paste. Oh, so I think I need to copy that again. All right, so we copy this URL once again. Make sure it's the HTTPS, because obviously we're using the internet for now. So paste that over there. Right, then we've got our link. Close that with a single quote, and if I press enter, you will then see, okay, It's running. It's running. It's running. It should actually. So for maybe for you guys, it might actually pop up a window asking maybe for some like password or some or authentication. I mean, I've already done all of that. And if I go into my file, as you guys can see, let me hit refresh. Right, you will see something called branch one. If I click on branch one, right, and I see on main, let's see. Okay, it hasn't really shown up yet. If I press refresh, okay, let's see. Sometimes it does take a bit of time. Let's see. Let me try push it again. Let's see. So okay, original already exists. So maybe it's just taking time to show. Okay, let's see. That's no, that's not it. Let's see. Let's see. Oh, go to file. Okay. Okay, it seems like on my side it's just taking a while. So I'm guessing on your side it most probably would have shown by now. All right. So how to actually check? There should be a drop down, and there should be something called the master branch. So as you guys can see over here, it's actually called the master branch, right? And it says it already exists, but I'm not actually seeing where it is. So maybe GitHub is just acting a bit slow on my end. There's no issues. Yeah, so maybe just taking some time because all right, so that's perfectly fine. So your folders by now should actually show, all right, that actually they should show. And then now that we know that, okay, our files are actually all up and running, let's just actually say git state just once again. Okay, on Monsterbrot, nothing to commit, working tree is clean. So that means everything is now officially been pushed properly and so forth. As I said, sometimes it might take some time, maybe because I was just on GitHub quite a lot. All right, so our website is up and running. We've pushed it on GitHub. What's the next thing we need to do? All right, so now we actually need to host our website. So now, guys, we need to now go into our Azure account, right? So hopefully you guys, as I said, have signed up into your Azure accounts, have logged in and so forth. Remember, I did say that for some people, you might have to, input some of your card details, but it's not going to charge you anything. This is for authentication reasons and so forth. So if I go back to VS Code, right? If I go into my extensions, let's go to my extensions, right? My extensions panel. And if I type the Azure account, right? So you should see something that looks something like this, Azure account. And I just want to obviously install it. And what this is going to help us to do is it's going to help us to actually sign into Azure using VS Code. So guys, if you guys actually don't know about this interesting fact, Microsoft actually owns VS Code, right? It's a VS Code. VS Code is a Microsoft product, as well as GitHub, right? So GitHub is also a Microsoft product. So that's why all of these technologies work quite well together, right? So obviously, after you've installed it and everything, make sure that you've also signed into your Azure account. So your Azure account should look something along like this. So this is just the dashboard. And as I said, guys, if you've got time, you guys can definitely play around with it. It provides you with an SQL database, web services, You can create virtual machines. There's, I mean, the list is endless, right? There's a dashboard over here that you guys can check with all the other products, right? So what we actually interested in, obviously, as you said, we are just interested in the app services, right? So we're just gonna click on app services over here. Right. So another thing about Microsoft Azure as well, it does also take some time, right? So what we then want to do is we want to create a new one. Just zoom a bit. So we want to create a new app service. All right. And so I'm gonna give it a name. So I'm just gonna, okay, I had a name before, so I'm just gonna call it Koketo 123. And okay, so it's fine. So this name, by the way, you have to actually it has to be unique because every single URL has to be specifically unique. If you go up here, obviously we're going to check out our subscription. Okay, we're actually using the free tier. You guys might also have to create one, right? It's quite simple. You create one right over here. A resource group, I'm just going to call mine yeah, so I've created a new resource group. It's fine, guys. If you don't understand this part, all of this stuff, it's completely fine. All you just have to worry about is exactly following my steps, right? You're using the free tier, and the resource group is it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Then I created here's my, so this is basically going to be my URL name, right? So go get to 123 azurewebsites.net. And what do I then want to put? What do I want to publish? I want to publish the static website, right? Okay, then it says, let's create. Okay, let's see. Oh, it's refreshing. All right, let's try that again. Okay, resource group, that's fine. Enter static name. So I said it's gonna be okay. So 1, 2, 3. It's checking. Okay, it's valid. Plan. It's free. So now with this okay, we're not using Azure Functions, so that's really not important. So now it's going to ask us deployment details, right? Are we going to use an Azure are we going to use GitHub? Are we going to use other? So guys, remember we do have an Azure a GitHub account. I think for you guys, you obviously have to sign in or verify or something like that and go through the steps. But as you guys can see, I'm already logged into my GitHub account, right? And what I then have to do is just to make sure that everything is actually merged. So organization is actually me. Then it's going to actually load all of my repositories. Right, it's loading, it's loading, it's loading. And then I just have to go find, what did I name it? What did I name it? Let's see. My first Django app, okay? My first Django app. So down to M, my first Django website. Okay, cool. It's loading. And okay, let's see. It's no, that's fine. Let's create and review. Okay, so it's gonna take time because it's just creating everything. All right. Yeah, and we just simply can create. Then you should see it's initializing, it's initializing. So while this is initializing, let's usually go to VS Code. And once Azure account has actually signed in, what you then can do is go to View, and you're gonna go to Command Palette, right? So in Command Palette, what you want to do is now I want to make sure that my VS Code is also signed into my Azure account. So as you guys can see, our Git has to be signed into our Azure account as well as our VS Code, right? So what we're just going to say is Azure sign in, right? Just click on that. And then you'll see Azure is now going to go and just do its magic in the background, and then it's going to open. and it's going to ask obviously to sign in. I'm going to sign in. All right, so you are signed in now, and you can close this page. So I can simply close this page. If I go to my use code, and then what I want to then do is, if I go on my panel over here, you should have like an Azure list over here, right? So let's actually, this is all the services that I've actually have. But remember, I'm interested into my app services, right? And as you guys can see, oh, I've actually got a free tier over here. Right, so I've got my free tier over here. So if I open that, right, so it's actually, let's just see if Microsoft is finished. Okay, so it's still initializing. Okay, it's complete. Go to my resources. Okay, so what we then want to do is see. Okay, so now what we want to do is, now let's also create a new name for, so enter a globally unique name for the new web app. So my web app is just going to be, let's just say, I don't know, you guys can give it a name. So let's just say Django dash it's dash website. Let's enter. Right? Okay, cool. Then what we're gonna do is we actually gonna use Python 3.9. So maybe some of you guys might see a list, something that looks like this. Just obviously we're using Python, so just click on Python 3.9, and we're gonna actually use the free tier. Click on that, and now it's creating my URL, right? So it's just gonna take some time. Let's just check on. Okay, we can actually go to our home. Now, as I said, guys, some of these things, you know, Azure does take time to create all of these mechanisms. So don't be worried or be scared if you push and try to host your website and it doesn't show immediately. Sometimes it actually takes like 2-3 minutes just for, you know, to Azure to actually fully migrate and push your website online. So another thing we can just simply do is, let's go into our static app. And another thing we then want to do is, okay, so what we want to do is, let's check. Let's go to, frontier. All right, so this is where I want to come into. Okay, let's see if VS Code is done. Okay, so it's finished actually creating our URL over here. So then what we then want to do is, let's go to back to Microsoft, and let's just make sure all our settings are actually up and running and are correct. Okay, let's click on web application, and let's see. Okay, everything's fine. Okay, browse home, access control. All right, so basically on the side over here, if you've got, let's say, like www dot your website restaurant name.co.za is actually you've got a URL already, you can actually use custom domain, but obviously we don't have that right now, so we don't have to worry about that. I'm just trying to see because it's supposed to be showing. All right, so let's see deployments. So as you guys can see, sometimes Azure does take time to actually show these things. So sometimes just refresh a couple of times, just for them to actually work properly. And all right, so even on VS Code, you can actually connect to your GitHub account. It's also fine. But we really don't want to do that right now. We just want to focus on actually deploying this thing. So let's see. All right, so if I left click, let's see, is it up and running? Okay. Okay, so now what I need to do is I actually need to okay, what's going on? Let's see. Okay, so what basically I just need to do is okay, just double checking something. Okay, no, that's fine. That's fine. All right, so I think it's now time we can actually push this thing. As I said, if you guys are not quite sure how, if your website is really going to show or not, so we can just left click and then we're going to say deploy to web app, right? You can click on that. And what we're then going to do, it's then going to ask you, obviously, which one do you want to actually push? So remember, it's called My Site, right? So we click on that. All right, so it's going to say, are you sure you want to deploy Django WebKit's website, right? Say, right, deploy. And just say, all right, yes. So now it's going to be deploying, right? So this also might just take some time. And let's just go to our home page here. So hopefully this actually won't take time so that I can actually show you guys when your website is up and running. All right, so do that. Okay. Let's see. Deploying. All right, so as you guys can see, it does just take some time to really load and just to communicate, just hosting your website, but please do just be patient. Sometimes it does take quite some time also just to reflect onto your website. But this is basically essentially the last and final step that we've actually have completed. So guys, while this obviously is still deploying, let me just go just do some final recaps of what we've actually learned throughout this, right? It's been quite a lot. There's a lot of stuff that we actually did learn. All right, so hopefully you guys really did capture quite a lot. So I actually want to quickly talk about something called Microsoft certifications, right? And let me just quickly talk about right. So I just want to talk to you guys about the Microsoft AZ 900 certification exam, where basically you'll be actually be learning about how to actually navigate and work through Microsoft Azure. So all of the things that are in knowing where the panel is, how to navigate your way through. So to actually familiarize yourself with the dashboard, how to use all of these services. So Microsoft actually has something called the Microsoft certification exam. This actually exam is quite interesting. It's quite beneficial. So what this actually tells companies that you are actually quite capable actually using the Microsoft Azure portal, right? So this exam, usually Microsoft actually does encourage people to attend a free session. Sometimes it's over 1 day, sometimes it's over 2 days, depending on how they actually structured and planned everything out. Just want to make sure. Let's see. All right, yeah, so here it is, right? So Microsoft Azure fundamentals, right? So this exam, it's quite simple to actually to learn. If you just go onto the Microsoft/learn website, you can actually learn this for free, right? So it's actually got timestamps. And this exam, I think I took like a week to study for it, and then I cleared it, I passed it. Yeah, I cleared it, I passed it. I also did the AZ data fundamentals, and I also did the data engineering one, right? So there's quite a lot of learning parts you guys can definitely learn from here. So what I'll actually do is I'm just going to pose a challenge to you guys. So for anyone who's actually managed to complete the web application or still struggling, I'll be giving at least 2 people free Microsoft certification exams that you guys can actually use and actually take this exam for free, right? I think this exam is about $55, which I think is about 750 South African rands. But once I've seen that you've actually did make an effort and so forth, I'll give like 2 people free Microsoft Azure data fundamentals exams. Guys, it's something that you really want to take seriously, take it as a consideration, because as you guys have learned throughout the last 4 days, is that cloud and data is quite important, as well as having something like web development on it. So just some things that actually cover the exams is you'll be talking about cloud concepts, you'll be talking about the Azure services and architecture, the management and governance, and I think the last one is billing and how obviously they charge. So as you guys saw on my account, I think I've still got about 300 and something. So I've got like 3,100 credits left. So as you can see, so so once you pass these exams, they actually give you credits that you can actually use as well. So let's just actually check if it's the deployment. So let's browse. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Let's see if it'll actually deploy. So sometimes you just have to just wait and wait and wait and wait and wait. But basically, this is my website URL, right? So if it doesn't show on you guys just as yet, I doubt it's gonna show immediately, right? Yeah. So it's still taking time on Microsoft. Sometimes you just have to like refresh. But as you guys can see, this is basically the URL of the website we're going to be using. And yeah, that's basically it. So I can actually close that. And yeah, so as a quick recap, guys, the day one, obviously we spoke about all things web development. We spoke about the different kinds of web developers that we have. We have the front end, we have the back end, and then we spoke about Django. We spoke about Python. We spoke about the importance of Python. We spoke about the importance of Django. I then even spoke about back end, front end, and full stack developers. You know, front end developers use frameworks like Angular or libraries like React. Back end, they use PHP or they use Node. Full stack developers obviously take databases into consideration with API integration, CI and CD pipelines. And then we also spoke about Microsoft Azure, which is obviously a cloud. So Microsoft Azure is a cloud provider that actually helps you do things like hosting your website online for free. We also spoke about VS Code. I showed you some shortcuts, and then we also built a website using Django, which is the website right here. And then we also spoke about GitHub and Git, right, in terms of pushing our code into a Git repository and making sure that our files are safe over there. So as you guys can see that, you know, you guys, we've covered quite a lot in the last 4 days, which is really, really commendable to you guys. So I think this is where we can actually call it our wrap, guys. I'm really, really excited to see if you guys have managed to. Please do reach out to me. Someone did actually ask me a question, I think 2 days ago, about this. So guys, please, if there's anything that you guys want to ask, if there's any questions that you guys want to ask, please do reach out. I am more than willing to help you guys. But yeah, all the best with your careers in terms of web development, and keep practicing, guys. Practice, 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 practice. Practice always makes perfect. And yeah, thank you so much once again with the iSet team. It's been really, really cool to host another session like this with you guys.
Thank you, Kaketso. Yay. If everybody could just give him a round of applause. Well done. Woo! This was a marathon session as always. Lots to learn, lots to digest, and presented so friendly. And so, well, you know, easy is always a relative term, but programming, I think the basis of programming is always perseverance and practice.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. So so just practice and practice and practice. You know, guys, it's going to take time for you guys to understand and learn these things. I mean, as I said, even myself, it did take some time for me to really learn and understand all of the stuff. So, you know, you're not gonna, you know, grab all of the concepts all in one go. It will take time. It will take practice. So just be patient with yourself. You know, be patient with yourself. Keep trying. Keep trying. You're going to fail. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to see errors. But as I said, guys, I'm also willing to help you guys if there's anything that you guys bump into. If there's any issues, I'm also here to help. So yeah, I just wish you all the best with your careers, guys.
As always, thanks, Kaketso. We're going to let everybody develop a website, and then we'll get you back to do some gaming in the, soon. Maybe let the students do their exams now in May and June, and then we'll have you back soon. All right.
Oh yeah, good luck once again with the exams. Oh yeah, it's exam season, so
it's exam season for some
short season, yeah. All right, so guys, yeah, thank you once again, the iSet team. It's been good, it's been great. I mean, even myself, there's pointers that I've actually picked up on that I have to just had to remind myself as well. So it was a really interesting week. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, we should definitely do more of these more often. You know, try to engage with more students and get people more on board.
We're going to put the links up onto the M1 MOOC for the time being, temporarily. We're busy constructing a Python repository of cool things. And so, Kaketso, we're going to put these 4 sessions up. And then when you do your gaming sessions later in the year as well, we're going to add that. But really, any ideas is always welcome. And it's for an enriching learning experience.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, even in future, when you know, there'll be actually more activities that I'll actually introduce in terms of integrating and you know, being familiar with the cloud. So obviously, you know that we're using Microsoft Azure. We might actually do some more activities, you know, interacting with the platforms, just so that, you know, people get familiar with it. Because as you guys know, coding with data, with cloud, it's a very big market that you guys can really capitalize on. The fact that you guys are interested in robotics and with the ISET and everything, it's really a good direction. So we just really want to pump more information and more options for you guys to actually get into.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think we're on the same page, Keketso. Cool.
Awesome.
All right.
Awesome.
So thank you very much. As soon as the campus
All right,
is open,
guys.
to join us for coffee in the hub, Keketso. That we
Oh
can
yes,
look each
I'll
other
definitely.
in the eye again soon.